Hey, good morning, beloved Pastor Shegun.
Good
How are we
morning.
doing,
Good
sir?
morning. Yeah, I'm
Please, sir.
fine. Doing well.
Awesome, great. Yeah, so we're here on a newfound stream,
Mm.
and we've been looking at the book of Daniel. So we've looked at verse 1 and 2, and we needed to move to verse 3 and 4. And it was, so in verse 3 and 4 pretty much just simply talks about the fact that, it says the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the prince, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of Chaldeans. So amongst this was Daniel and his three friends and probably other people. I mean, what catches my attention here is the fact that they would even use amongst the slaves that they caught, you know, they would not just limit themselves to what they had, but they looked at the fact that they could use of the slaves. They did not commonize their humanness and the potential that's inside of them, and they, even though they had conquered them in one sense, and they did not see them as useless. They saw them as people that had some potentials they could tap into and even grow to become better than they were, you know. And that's very instructive, and that tells a whole lot on why Nebuchadnezzar was a great king that he was, right? Uh, it tells of why God allowed him to conquer and have a great kingdom. And not just that he had a great kingdom, it became the starting point of the end times, right? No other person did God use as the starting point prophetically of the end times, because he was the one that had that image of which he was the head, and every other thing flowed from him. That brings him out as unique. And for God to do that, there had to be a reason for God to do that. I mean, God doesn't just do things. Earlier on, we're talking about looking at Elijah, because Elijah was one of the three people that did not die, right? They were translated. And we know that God doesn't just do things. There had to be something about Elijah we're trying to learn about. I know we didn't finish that, or someday we'll probably go back to it. But the Bible says that all that's been written was written for our learning, right? That we can, we can use that to be able to attain unto life, the fullness that God has for us. It's the good examples to follow, the bad examples to stay away from. But there is something about Nebuchadnezzar, even though he wasn't the original worshiper of God, that made him stand out as someone that God saw as the beginning of the close of the ages. Because the close of time starts with him being the head, and every other thing that came after him, becoming like the close of time. And again, he being the head, kind of stands head and shoulder above every other kingdom that came after him, because it was the head of gold. Every other thing was a lower value than he was, So we'll see what we can learn from him as we look through the book of Daniel. But obviously, there is something about him that God saw, that with him he began to close the pages, began to close times, let's say, and one of that we see here is him being able to understand assets and use assets for his growth, but we'll look more. Let's go